Hi everyone. For those of you that don't know me, I go by Sensei George, and I've been training in Ninpo, aka Budo Taijutsu, for 12 years, and have been also training BJJ, Muay Baran, and HEMA in the last 2 to 3 years. I was originally part of the Gimbukan until 2017 when my dojo rejoined the Bujinkan. While I am in the Bujinkan, I am a student of Ninpo and will gladly learn from multiple sources to truly learn the art. Today, I'll be doing a video reply to Rokas from the YouTube channel Martial Arts Journey. They went on to question, is Bujinkan effective? I'll be doing the video in small chapters to address each of the main questions he addressed. But I'm just saying, it's my birthday. I love martial arts so much, I'm talking about it on my birthday. And hopefully I'll squeeze in a little bit of martial arts training later too. So let's get on to question number 1. What is Bujinkan? First off, you stated that the Bujinkan is a martial art that was inherited by Masaaki Hatsumi, when in fact it is an organization that studies Ninpo, which is a system of martial arts skills utilized in warfare. 36 skills referred to as the Ninpo Sanjuroke are formed of 18 samurai skills and 18 shinobi skills. The Ninpo Sanjuroke has changed throughout history. Grandmaster Tanemura had a list that he shared through one of his books that showed them changing throughout time. But here's a quick glance at what the skills actually have. So just to go through them, the Samurai 18 skills had unarmed fighting, sword, staff, halberd, spear, horseback archery, blade throwing, chain and sickle techniques, horsemanship, draw and cut techniques, chain and weight, 3/4 staff techniques, archery techniques, binding for prisoners, iron rod techniques, cannon techniques. Cannons. They used explosives, okay? Fighting in armor, and even swimming. The shinobi skills had unarmed combat, sword, full staff techniques, halberd, spear, some of the same techniques that you saw in the samurai techniques, but they often have their own little twist or have secret strategies that they would utilize with the skills as well. And then they had very specific skills as well, such as the kusarigama. They had disguise, they had walking techniques, they had hiding techniques, they had secret weapon techniques. These are things that would be hidden, such as rings on your hand that had spikes on one side but looked normal on the other. They have flutes disguised as blowguns, different things of that nature that you can see if you go deeper into ninja artifacts. And then they have medicinal techniques, and then Tenmon and Chimon. This is meteorology and geology, to be able to read the skies and determine what may happen on a battlefield weather-wise. And then spiritual refinement and Gunryaku Heiho, which is combat strategies. Many of these things are shared between both the samurai and the ninja, but they often have their own twist in how they apply them. So if this list doesn't say it by itself, Budo Taijutsu, in its very nature, is a mixed martial art. You learn 9 different family systems of unarmed combat. You learn a variety of weapons. You learn different family shared techniques of strategies. It is one of the original mixed martial arts. And it's going to continue to grow. So now let's break down the name real quick. Ninpo pretty much translates into the eternal truth of perseverance, and is a combination of Bumon, physical martial arts, and Shumon, spiritual training to be an effective warrior. So, while you may have addressed this video towards the Bujinkan, an organization, it is actually towards the martial art known as Ninpo, also referred to as Budo Taijutsu, where there are 3 main organizations that study it, being Bujinkan, Jininkan, and Gimbukan. As with the majority of organizations, I would like to point out that it isn't the best method to generalize the entire group, as there are many schools and groups on both ends of the spectrum. I'll be speaking of my experiences in training this art and how they apply to what you've said. I'll be referring to it as Budo Taijutsu for the rest of this video so that it matches what you're discussing a bit more in your own video for now. But it's called Ninpo. Your second topic. Bujinkan training doesn't include sparring. There's a lot to unbox with this statement. You then bring up that Budo Taijutsu doesn't participate or include competitions or contests. Competitions or contests are designed to be utilized for sport, and the purpose of the Bujinkan is to teach and preserve the skill sets that were utilized for warfare and self-defense. Two very different things, and therefore their approaches to training are also different. Competition, sparring, self-defense, and warfare are not the same thing. Competition is an agreed-upon duel with another individual to test your skills with agreed-upon rules that increase entertainment and aesthetics of the competition, as well as to try to protect the contestants as much as possible. There are even unwritten rules between contestants themselves. The best example I could bring up from my own curiosity is the lack of knee kicks in MMA. Kicking to the knee can be absolutely destructive, but it's not a move that's done often, but when it appears, there's controversy of whether it should be removed from the sport or not. I believe a good deal of contestants avoid doing knee kicks to preserve one another in the long run, but if you do one, expect one to be done back to you swiftly. Then we have sparring. You're literally training your martial arts skills with people you both know and hopefully like. You tend to stay away from moves that could cause them more damage if they aren't prepared for it. However, you can also do more technical sparring to focus on certain areas of your combat strategies and begin to pressure test them against a resisting opponent. During technical sparring, I find that it's easier to cover dangerous techniques and application with some resistance, with a lower chance of injury due to having specific goals and being able to provide proper gear and mental preparation for what techniques could arise. But I'll get into our techniques are too dangerous topics in a bit. Then we have self-defense. You do not get to choose when violence happens to you or how it happens to you. In self-defense, it will most likely be reactive of someone else initiating the attack, and the person is likely to pick the fight and the conditions to be in their favor. But guess what? There are still rules when you do self-defense. They're dictated by your state, and it's your job to know them. Self-defense laws. Whether you have a duty to retreat, when and what weapons are legal to use, and what level of force of self-defense is even justifiable. Lastly, we have warfare. There is an idea of who, what, when, and where that the combat may take place, especially when you initiate the mission. There are war crimes, and therefore there are even rules in war now. However, in terms of survival and combat, there are the least amount of rules compared to all of the other levels that we previously mentioned. In war, you have an idea of who the enemy is beforehand, and you do everything in your power to ensure that it is not an even fight. You will want more manpower, more firepower, more technology, more information, more allies, and anything else that tilts the scale in your favor. Hence the famous phrase of, all is fair in love and war. And then, here's one of my other favorite phrases. If you're in a fair fight, your tactics suck. You then brought up the famous topic of, our techniques are too dangerous to spar. There is both truth and myth in this topic. You first stated that if a technique works, then it would be applied in MMA competitions. That statement alone is a contradiction, because it is a sport and has rules to, again, preserve the aesthetics and entertainment of the sport and the health of the participants. So, here I have a general list of illegal moves in the UFC. And I'm just going to go through some of these and how they relate to techniques in Budo Taijutsu and a whole other group of martial arts, and show how come MMA is not the best pedestal to say whether things work outside of a sport context. So just start off the list, you have headbutting. One of the most talked about illegal moves in UFC. They can crush people's faces in and cause brain damage and head trauma that'll last someone the rest of their lives. People start feeling a specific type of way if that were to perpetuate itself throughout the art. You have eye gouging. Everyone likes to talk about how eye gouging can end a fight. Well, I agree that it's not necessarily a fight ender, but if you get into a grapple and you gouge someone's eye in that instance, it's going to make them let go, which give you a chance to reset, get a submission, get a sweep, and get out of a situation, or just to continue laying on the strikes yourself. So, eye gouges are not an end-all be-all, but it is definitely a useful tool that is utilized in Ninpo. It's called Rukin when we go to attack the eyes. The headbutt's called Kikakuken in Ninpo, where we actually use headbutts, and we even had specific headwear that would make our headbutts more dangerous. We have biting. Okay, Biting is pretty brutal. It can actually rip off chunks of flesh when done correctly. They like to use the instance of where Mike Tyson bit Holyfield's ear clean off, but it is a technique that is utilized if you got an arm bar and someone's cranking it, but you're latching onto your own hand so someone can't get an arm bar off, and you bite into the back of their calf muscle or their thigh. They're likely to let go, which creates a chance for you to get an escape and get into a better position. Hair pulling. Samurais had top knots. People had hair. If they have hair and it's a useful tool, it can be used in a fight. Fish hooking, same thing. A lot of submissions rely on you working your hand underneath people's chins and different things like that. You can easily fish hook the nose, different areas as well, and cause someone to move their head that would allow you to get the submission in. This kind of stuff is important in self-defense where that rule doesn't exist. You could fish hook to be able to get a better grip and get into something because no one wants to fight that. Groin attacks, same thing. It's not a fight ender, but it can help you set up stuff. Sometimes, depending on your opponent, it's delayed effects, different things like that. But we have the attacks in Nimpo, small joint manipulation. So, actually, a lot of Nimpo relies on that. When you're doing grip fighting in BJJ and other arts like judo, you could easily go to secure fingers and use those to manipulate and move someone around, and you would probably break those fingers each time you did it, which would, in the long run, affect all the people that did UFC and MMA the more their fingers got broken. Then you have rabbit punches, where it's just punching to the back of the head, also not allowed, but is a very good technique in warfare and can help out. So now we're looking at 12 to 6 elbows. So someone coming in to grab your waist, you dropping an elbow on the back of their head. It's almost like doing a rabbit punch, and then doing the same thing in the middle of mounting someone. It wouldn't be allowed, but it has a lot of potential damage behind it as well. And again, this goes into self-defense versus sport. Pile driving, same thing. How many wrestlers have that skill set? A lot of people in BJJ are getting that as well, but they go to still do the technique to protect the neck. So while they're practicing the technique, they may be doing it differently. That overlays in how techniques are performed in Nimpo as well. We have a lot of throws that overlap with judo, but the execution is to actually generally make them land on their neck. And then kicks, knees, stomps to the head of a grounded opponent. So not being able to knee someone with one knee on the ground, different things like that. Shorts, gloves, and fence holding. So holding the shorts or gloves during clinches and grappling exchanges is illegal, but those are the best times to do wrist locks and that type of manipulation that is now removed out of the MMA situation. And utilizing your environment in your fighting is part of self-defense as well. So that type of thing is removed out by saying you can't grab onto the fence. So just to highlight a few more of the illegal moves in UFC, throat strikes aren't allowed, of course. So that removes our knife hand strikes to the neck, which is pretty much one of the first few strike techniques that you even learn, and setups for a lot of our throws as well. So when you go in to try to grab someone's neck to go for a hip throw, yeah, they're going to put up a pretty good fight. But if you do a neck strike, you could actually jostle a nerve bundle in the neck. You could potentially dislocate a disc, and you could also cause a hemorrhage in that area while you're trying to execute the throw. So you have a whole bunch of things that can go in your favor, as well as actually just striking to the esophagus before a throw. All these techniques become a little bit easier when you go into that realm of stuff. We have clawing, pinching, twisting of the flesh. All that stuff's taught in Nimpo, grabbing of the clavicle. It is literally like a God-given groove for someone to latch onto that's utilized in Nimpo as well. Several techniques are using the three-finger strike there to be able to push someone down, or to hook to get ready to pull them into throws. Most of the other ones are towards sportsman-like conduct, and I won't be going into that part of this. They have striking the part of the body just above the kidneys. Here again, they are removing different aspects of which part of the bodies that you can strike, which again limits the amount of different techniques that can be applied. So those techniques are on this list because they work, and they can prove to be a problem for presenting the sport for entertainment, because people don't want to see that kind of stuff done to people generally, and protecting their athletes. Then you brought up the Gracie Challenges. As I mentioned before, there are both those written rules and unwritten rules and these types of agreed upon duels and competitions that people hold themselves and others to. While they may have said that groin strikes and eye strikes were allowed for a bit of cash, do you know what kind of mindset you'd have to go in with the idea of potentially doing irreparable damage to an opponent for a bit of cash? Then there's also the question as to whether they personally actually tried to execute such strikes while being watched by people that are judging them and what they stand for. Everyone is looking at it now. Krav Maga does groin strikes and eye gouges, and people are like, oh, well, they use that as a crutch. Their other techniques don't matter. Well, if a Krav Maga person did that, they say that art is still crap. They wouldn't have been able to do that if they didn't have the eye gouge or the groin strike. But again, getting rid of someone's vision, potentially for life, for $1,000 is pretty rough in my opinion. I wouldn't go about doing that. And just to go on this real quick, I've picked up BJJ, and I have a few people that don't mind me including the Budo Taijutsu mindset and including some of the more dangerous strikes in my rolling to see how it can help set up different moves and provide escape opportunities. It absolutely works and actually removes the necessity of several escapes when you can strike the groin. For example, if I'm fighting to get the armbar on someone and I just strike their groin with my south arm, then execute the armbar fully when they react to the pain, they don't have the ability to defend that. If they try to block or deal with the arm that's going to hit their groin, their arm's exposed. If I hit them in the groin, their grip is likely to loosen and the arm is now exposed. If someone is trying to grapple me and I put them into what's referred to as a punch block and mount where I hook over their arm and cut the back of their neck, that's a prime opportunity to get some eye gouges to raise their head up, which provide opportunities to then spin into a closed guard armbar. So they're there, you just have to train for them. And yes, there are techniques that are too dangerous to train against full resistance. However, Budo Taijutsu practitioners, like myself, take advantage of using randori, aka technical sparring, so that we can train the potentially harmful techniques with opponents that are aware of what may be done. If my opponent is fighting for an underhook and I meet them with an ear clap to potentially destroy their eardrum before I follow up with a throw, that throw becomes a lot easier. You try to use BJJ as a leading example of how you can go full resistance with dangerous techniques and have no injuries. Let me tell you, I am on several BJJ forums and there is no shortage of people that have suffered short-term and chronic injuries from doing BJJ. Injuries doing BJJ aren't rare, and the majority of BJJ is made up of pain compliance techniques. Every submission is a pain compliance technique. You're holding it to make someone submit from pain by complying. And then you went on to question, is Budo Taijutsu effective? Yes, the martial art is effective. It was built upon spilled blood on battlefields. However, it needs to be trained properly for its application to flourish. This is around when you use my clickbait video where in the description it stated it was a summary video of the tutorials and entertainment vids I did for the year. I mean, if the Santa Claus outfit wasn't a hint, I don't know how else to help you. You then went on about how videos of katas and tutorials didn't exhibit aliveness. In my training, I was taught that there should always be an air of distrust when doing kata to keep you on your toes and keep you from not doing your best. If an opportunity to do a counter arises, then you do it. Let me clear something up about our kata as well. In Budo Taijutsu, we do two-person katas where you'll often see combinations of punches and throws that resemble a choreographed fight. However, these kata do not exist to teach people how to fight against a certain combo of attacks. Rather, each kata has a lesson on principles of connecting individual techniques or principles of combat. As with any kata, there is then the bunkai, the combat application lessons that can be interpreted from the kata. Kata are transmission tools to pass down techniques and lessons through history. However, if you look up BJJ and Muay Thai tutorials, you get the same thing. People allowing techniques to be done to them because they are teaching. If you know what move is being done to you, of course you can counter it. Most of the time, just by not allowing it to be set up. You can't throw me if I don't let you grab me. There is no shortage of people that train in Budo Taijutsu that are law enforcement officers, military, and other frontline positions that have utilized the techniques, strategies, and mindsets taught in the art effectively in their jobs. Even if you were to get a video of a Budo Taijutsu practitioner doing self-defense in the street, it would quickly have been labeled as someone doing judo, BJJ, Muay Thai, karate because they are more popular in society. Then you bring up Budo Taijutsu sparring. Here you come across the same issues that I mentioned earlier. You have people sparring with the rules for safety. You have equipment that tends to make it harder to do grappling, such as gloves. But you have people safe from the damages of striking. This is where technical sparring and randori are the most effective for training the aspects of the art safely with resistance. Then you make the point to say that under pressure, many of the practitioners devolve into doing kickboxing and BJJ. So why don't they do kickboxing and BJJ instead? However, I really need to make the point that each of the strikes that exist in kickboxing are found in karate, and many of the ruha that are studied in Budo Taijutsu. And let's not forget, BJJ came from judo, and judo came from Japanese jiu-jitsu, which has its roots in taijutsu and ju taijutsu, which is practiced in Budo Taijutsu. So they are still doing elements of their arts in those sparring matches, but it often devolves to exactly that due to the rule sets, the equipment, and they haven't trained to apply their art in that respective scenario. So here's my conclusion. Budo Taijutsu is absolutely effective in self-defense. However, it must be trained for that application. I do feel that practitioners of Budo Taijutsu should include randori in almost every training session to reach that goal and to train our variety of techniques against a resisting opponent in a safe manner. I also feel that cross-training benefits us not only in learning new techniques, but to pick up new training methodologies that we can apply to how we train our Budo Taijutsu and to continue growing as martial artists. So, for my Budo Taijutsu peers out there, remember, you can only fight the way you practice. So keep your training diverse, make sure that you are able to perform under stress, try different types of randori, and cross-train as part of your Musha Shugyo, your warrior's journey, to help your Taijutsu and Ninpo as a whole grow. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe and hit the like button, and feel free to leave some comments to let me know what you guys felt about this reply video. Thank you for watching. Domo arigatou gozaimashita. Yo!